welcome our students, we welcome all the authorities that are here, and especially we welcome Professor Michael Rodi for taking your time and staying here with us. So this is a major opportunity for all of us to have not only the knowledge that comes from you from all those years studying energy and the energy transition and the climate change, but also knowing that Germany is one of the major countries that has all the patents for the energy transition and the instruments that we can, they are it's really a lead country in Europe. So we are eager to understand a bit more and understand how we can take all these instruments and develop them, make some changes, and adapt them to our reality. So let me just present you a little bit of our center. We have some centers and research programs that work with state governance. We work with energy, sustainability, climate change. We also study agribusiness, the tax. We work with the compliance and several other, also innovation and technology, and several other instruments. And we have some activities that go on here, not only Congress and conferences that our students are invited, but we also are producing some reports and major publications. So these are, even this is, Maria João, that is right here. And this is the other founder we have here, the major in the council. Here we are, and some publications that we also have. And if you access this one, you have the data in Brazil for energy transition, and climate change. So this is a recent presentation that we had. Just a couple of days ago, we had also a tax reform presentation webinar, and we are launching also a course with some hours talking about the tax reform in Brazil. And we are very excited about this project. In the 7th of November, we are going to present the International Energy Transition Congress in Brazil. We are going to have here with us Romani Webb, major professor from the Saving Center for Climate Change in the United States and at Columbia University, and also representatives from the Latin America and major universities here in Brazil. And also, we are going to launch our book. It's our baby. Since February, we have been selecting the papers that would be developed for the chapters. Professor João Rolim and Professor Antônio Carlos Amaral, they both have chapters in this book. Each chapter has a professor that is leading of this chapter, PhD leader, and we are going to talk about the instruments for the energy transition as we have so far in Brazil. And so all the students are very invited. Just the next day, I'm going to be traveling to the Conference of the Parties. It's our 5th opportunity being there. And the second time that I'm going to be representing the Mackenzie University and Mackenzie Institute for Public Policies. And it's going to be a very exciting conference because it's just before the one that we are going to have in Belém next year, right? So we are very excited, and I think there's going to be a lot of pressure because we saw many promises of funds for the developing countries to go into this direction, but we don't see much of the transfer of money and knowledge that were promised in the past year. So let's see how it's going to be the outcome. Yes, you are going to be at Baku, right? You're going to be there, yes. But I think you're going to the second week. I'm going to be the. But let's talk about these, yes. And you're going to be in the days that people are going to develop the final drafts, right? That's fine. So here's just a remembrance that we don't have yet 10% of women working in energy and climate change issues. And we have to be there with more force and presence, because we can contribute much more for these issues. So this is for the students, the women that are in class. But still, we have women that are being prominent in this area, in hydrogen, in wind, offshore, and onshore energy, and biogas. These are major leaders, director of the ANEL, one of the agencies in Brazil, and here is from another agency. Actually, 3, 4 agency representatives, and some of our students are also here, and let me see, one of them is here, that is studying these major subjects. So I just want to show you some scenario. Last week we had the Fields of the Future program that was launched. It was signed by the President of Brazil. The law is very recent, and here we can see it for the first time, some of the clean energy sources. They're going out from a program, but nowadays as a law. So you're expecting that we are going to see regulation for these, right? And it's not only a program that is under the ideology or the politician that from every 4 years that can change. So now we have a law, there's going to be more stability. There is also the consensus from COP28 that can also be a help for Brazil to go into this direction. Is the pledge is that there's going to be 3 times more clean energy availability and twice efficiency. So we have to double the efficiency of the energy sources. And let's see if we can get into this opportunity as well, especially for developing countries, and Brazil as the country that has surrounded with so many resources and knowledge, especially because, you know, for oil and gas offshore, and so we can exchange to a hydrogen for offshore wind and so on. There is also the group of 77 plus China pledge that also can bring some opportunities to Brazil. And the carbon border adjustment mechanism, that is, of course, we know that this is a barrier. It's a protection that Europe is bringing, but especially France, I think, is leading this conversation. But we can also see these as an opportunity for change in Brazil, an opportunity for us to have a major voice outside, and also improving the protocols, improving the laws that we have, and protection, more protection of the burning of our forests, and so on. And also the CORSIA, which is a global agreement that is from 2027, is going to be a mandate. There is going to be an obligation of a mix of 1%, and every year is going to increase from 1%, 2%, until we have biofuel for aviation, civil aviation. And of course, there is this is a special fuel, and we need special venues also to produce it. So we can see also as a major economic opportunity for Brazil, because it's a mandate worldwide from 2007 on. Another thing is that the International Energy Agency listed on its report regarding Brazil energy profile. 6 of the major infrastructure projects are currently either on construction or feasibility studies phase. So we know that Brazil is going to this direction of the energy transition. We can show the oil and gas, the pre-salt data online 2027. So it's going to be a lot of investment in oil and gas. You still see a lot of investment in oil and gas. The hydrogen, ammonia, and I know that Professor is going to talk about one of the projects that he's involved regarding Germany and Brazil. The nuclear Angra 3 that we expect from 2028 to start this a modern nuclear reactor. And also the CCS, CCUS, that comes from the Brazilian law that I told you about like 10 days ago that we had the biofuel program. It also has the CCS, CCUS program, and it's a new market in Brazil as well, because you are going to develop, and we don't have the regulation, so the Mackenzie Integrity is studying as long, very close to the agency, INP, the national agency. We have an agreement, and this agreement shows that we have to help them structure a regulation for this new market. So that's what we have been doing right now. So my weekends are like this with Professor Maria João, that is not here. She's traveling in business. But we are developing this market and also the regulation to improve, increase this market. And the transmission and interconnections, because we know that the northeast of Brazil is producing extra energy, clean energy, but we don't have the transmission to the southeast of Brazil enough to get use of all this energy and the opportunities we have. Just for you to know that São Paulo is importing 40% of its energy. It comes from other states. So if you start thinking about the artificial intelligence and the database and all these data lakes and all, they're going to consume a lot of energy. And we really need more sources of energy. And this is some information for you about the infrastructure in Brazil, the infrastructure bonds, also to help support and to increase the possibilities of raising funds. You know, we are talking about infrastructure, so it's a lot of money that we are talking. We cannot rely only in the government, of course, but also the market needs some security, and they have to know that the legislation is going to give them some security so that they can invest, and they are waiting for these. I also want to show you some of the largest biomethane plants in South America. Some of the students here went with us, like I think last month or so, right? 2 months ago, we went to this plant to see, and 60% of the biomass waste of São Paulo City goes to this place. And you have all this logistic that is changing, so we can improve and transform the waste into energy. And let's see. And so there's some other new policies. Another policy that is very new is about the low-carbon hydrogen. And we don't have time for these, but to produce hydrogen, you can produce from several sources. But we are now investing in the clean hydrogen, which could be called the green hydrogen, but we prefer to say the low-carbon hydrogen source, right? This is the regulatory structure we have in Brazil. We have several agencies, and some of them, like 5 or 6, are related to energy somehow. The critical minerals and the energy, electric energy, the gas and all. And this is the study that I talked to you about. And this is our presentation. It's a very short one just for you to know the overview of what we are facing now in Brazil regarding energy transition. So, but I would like to talk about Professor Michael Rodi. This is my pace. I think this is mine here. Is this mine? Is this yours or no? I think it's, excuse me. Yes. Just for us to know that Professor Michael Rodi, he's the founder of IKEM, right? It's the institute in German that is in Germany for executive and scientific research. And he also is an expert on climate law. And I want to let you know that I worked under the auspice of Professor Michael Gerard at the Savings Center. And also, he works with sustainable energy, transport, and as well as fundamental issues of tax and subsidy law. He's also a professor that studies law, political science, economics, and Constance, Munich, and Paris. From 1999 to 2021, he held the chair of public law, financial law, environmental and energy law at the University of Greifswald. That's the same. He is currently the spokesperson for the energy cluster at the Interdisciplinary Research Center to the Baltic Sea Region. So, Professor, it's a major honor for us to have you here. Thank you so much. And you know you are at home. The students are very eager to know about how they can study there in Germany. So please explain us. Thank you so much. The floor is yours.
Yeah. Thank you. Can you make my presentation? Yes, thank you so much for the nice words. I have been tax professor actually before, and via environmental taxes, I sneaked out and more went to energy transformation and climate law. And I have been given the topic, which is very interesting, of course. The first one, challenges of energy transition. The next one, comparative analysis between Brazil and Germany, is very difficult for me, because on the one side, I know a lot of details about the situation in Germany. On the other side, I'm at the start of law comparison with Brazil. We just are releasing, we also yearly make a book, and we just are releasing a book on energy transformation in Europe. So we cover all Europe and show the developments, the similarities. And now we will go further. And our next book will be with some partners on the legal framework for hydrogen production and transport. And one of the partners is Brazil, the University of Fortaleza. And then Morocco and China and, of course, Europe. So, excuse me that I'm at the start, and I don't want to tell too much about Germany. There I will sort of fly over, and I'm, of course, prepared to tell you details when you want to know them. Yeah, maybe a word to my institute, Institute of Climate Protection, Energy and Mobility. We are based in Berlin, so really in the center of Berlin, and we are around, now it's here 60, now it's 70 researchers. And what we are doing is we are doing research on the law and policy framework. So we are not lawyers in the sense that we apply law. No, we make law, we design law, which is much more fun than applying law, by the way. Once the government of Vietnam has asked me to design and implement an ecological tax reform, and I have done that. I often went to Hanoi and talked to everybody, and then I made this tax reform. And then I ran away because then complication starts, how to apply it, and that it was not perfect and whatsoever. Yeah, and we are working interdisciplinary, which is necessary because designing law is not a purely legal question, but you need a lot of lawyers, which some, especially economists, doubt. Because lawyers are extremely important. First of all, when you want to change something, you must study the existing law. I mean, you cannot, from the scratch, like economists often want, invent something. No, you have to look, what do we have? What do we need to change? And then, of course, you need technical expertise, economic expertise a lot, political science expertise. And then in the end, when you have an idea how to regulate, you need lawyers again, because you have to implement it now into the existing legal framework. And you have to know the competences, whether the federation or whatever is competent for it. You must know the other law, because you know that law should not be contradictory. Then it doesn't work. So you have to be very careful. Okay. And we are, as an NGO, we are observer at the United Nations. And this year we always have special topics. And this brings me, because this year it's very much connected to this center, which I co-founded at the University of Greifswald, which you don't have to know Greifswald. It's very old, the university, 550 years. It's at the Baltic Sea, but very small. 80,000 inhabitants, out of which are 20,000 students. So 1/4. And here, just to give you an impression, we are dealing with an area which is also very interesting but very challenging. We are, from all disciplines, studying an area. And we have like clusters on cultural heritage, security, new nationalism, sustainability, and lovely energy transformation in the Baltic Sea. I thought at the beginning, a historian convinced me to do that. I said, for you historians, it's clear that an area is very interesting for historic studies, also for linguistics. Also, I can understand sustainability, that you say this sea is an ecologic area, and we study it. Law. But then energy, now I'm completely convinced. It's so amazing. This area, it's far away from you. Baltic Sea area with Scandinavia, the Baltic states, nasty Russia sitting also a little there, Poland, Germany, Denmark. And we study at the moment broken transformation. We say this Baltic Sea area must also have a transformation. Commission says it will be the first region in Europe to have net zero. Very interesting region. But it's, from energy policy, completely fragmented. Still, due to the former wall, we have a completely different energy policy as in the Baltics, in Poland, from their history. Okay, and what we do now, we have now a research project there on the link of climate energy policies and security. And this is what we will present in several panels and side events at the COP this year. And who brought me to this? 21, just stop me when I'm telling too many stories. 21, I signed a cooperation treaty of my institute with the University of Kharkiv, which is a big city in the northeast of Ukraine, and a very famous law university. Then we framed a fantastic project together, on hydrogen, by the way, pipelines involved. And then the war broke out. And then I invited quite some PhD students and even one postdoc to join me so that they have shelter, not only real one, but academic shelter. And since then, Ukraine is a big topic for us. We are now entrusted by the European Commission to set up an energy plan, the energy system of Ukraine after the war. And you think, oh, okay, you don't know when the war will end. But we also study what it implies for now, in the repairing and whatsoever difficult times, that not to lose the vision of the green after-war Ukraine. And now at the COP, my institute is proud that we finance a Ukraine pavilion, because they didn't have. And so we collected money because Ukraine should have a voice, and we are the ones who sort of co-organize it with the Ukrainian government. And in February, I will go to Kiev, but my wife says no, but I say yes. It's not dangerous as my, but maybe it's another reason, because my wife is Russian. This is a very tricky topic. We are not talking about the war. Right away. No, she mentioned once, this war is not against our Ukraine friends. It's a war against NATO and the West on Ukraine ground. And I said, my dear, from now on, we don't talk about politics anymore. Because I have quite another approach to the problem. Okay. Okay, now the challenge of climate change and the law. What I will give you now is, I think, some overview on how we will approach the law comparison, which we will do with the University of Fortaleza. And then I come to the point that, law comparison on the one hand is extremely important. Why? Because we have to act, the states have to act so fast, the problems are so pressing that we don't have time, that each state or whatever invents and thinks about regulation. No, we have all the time to look around who is doing what, taking best practices to be fast enough. And now the second thing, which you will see in my presentation, most of the things we have to do, no state has a solution. So we have to jointly work, which I also will do with my Brazilian friends, not saying, okay, this is it in Germany, do you want to take it here? No, it's for free. Or vice versa. Oh, fantastic piece of regulation, Brazil, we can export it to Germany. No, most topics, we both stand like this, and say, no clue how to do it. And then we have to make a comparison of legal policy, proposals, and ideas, not only about law. Yeah, this I don't have to tell you. And of course, just to mention, we will, when you make law comparison, then you have to see where you are with the countries you compare. You cannot just abstractly compare. The preconditions are very important. And the latest book on energy transformation, comparison, law comparison in Europe made it very easy, because we had the common ground of EU regulation. And then you have, of course, a common structure, and you see where the gaps are, and then you can go into them. But then it's very easy. We had, of course, lovely Britain in it, who left us, but they are still very much under the influence of Europe, and we took them in. But with Brazil, of course, the differences in adaptation policies, they are tremendous. You cannot compare a lot. We go into mitigation, means so decarbonization. And now what I just mentioned is, of course, a first obstacle or question to the comparison, that you can say more or less than 50% of German climate and energy transformation law is European law. Yes, but this means you can compare, but you cannot compare purely German law and Brazilian law. You must compare Brazilian law with the German European regulation. You cannot exclude, you cannot exclude emissions trading scheme, for example. Yeah, and then you see, of course, when you go into details, that here the problems are quite different. Of course, when you see the importance of land use and land use change, that this is a huge topic naturally in Brazil. In Germany, less. We have more the mitigation problems in industry, transport, and households. And of course, I will come to this. Socioeconomic inequalities in the population are a huge topic also for climate change, also for acceptance, and so on. And here we differ also a lot, but we have also quite dramatic socioeconomic inequalities. So then just a look up to the heaven. No, we have, when we compare, we have to look our common heaven. But as you know, the UN framework as legal framework is interesting, but quite, let's say, yeah, quite weak. But it will play a role in some points. For example, the net zero target at the moment is not yet law, if I see it right, in Brazil, but it's an NDC. So it comes in my opinion, as binding international law, comes back to Brazil and EU. I said we cannot separate from our national orders. Yeah, and then when we look at climate law, before we go in the details, some higher ranking questions, the constitutions. The constitutions are very interesting, and here it makes sense to compare Brazil and Germany, because the multi-level system, when you take away the supranational level, of course, but the national level, we have quite many commonalities, and especially it starts from the federal competence, which is very parallelly framed as a concurrent competence, which then leads, of course, to the respective multi-level governance problems. And the same, it will influence our work, is the material requirements. What does the Constitution say to and dictate to the governments? And we have a very nice parallel in doing so, that our constitutional courts are structurally very similar in their role. And moreover, we have quite some similarities regarding the contents, material contents of the Constitution. So we have guaranteed environment and intergenerational justice as an objective goal. So courts apply it when there are leeways, and then this comes in. And I think Brazil is a step further now, at least in the, as far as I understood it, in the drive to change the Constitution. This will be extremely interesting for us when this amendment will get through. As I understood, the Senate already, it passed already the Senate. So it looks quite promising that it will come. On the other hand, our Constitutional Court made a revolution, a legal revolution. They, and of course, they were praised for doing it. So, you know, the sort of leading constitutional court in the world, deriving from basic rights clear obligations of the government to act. And oh, fantastic, all environmentalists. I also thought, nice, but on the other hand, I said, I'm scared what they are doing. I'm scared.
Who's going to pay for it?
Yeah, but for me, it's a question of legitimation, because they really, and of legal technique. So they had some, very shortly, very briefly, some very good arguments that the basic rights are not only the basic rights of the now living generation, but also the basic rights. You can infringe the basic rights of future generations. And now they say, with our as emissions, we put so much pressure on them to deal with it and to avoid emissions, that this will infringe their diverse liberties of property, of whatsoever. And this is why we have to act now. But legally seen, this is amazing that they derived, you know, how much emissions Germany should have. This is very contested, as you know, in the UN framework, whether this is per capita or historic responsibility or whatsoever. But the Constitutional Court, and all the data they have about effects, they just derive from IPCC. Now, IPCC is known as a big scientific body. But my wife is a lead author of IPCC, and I know how they are bargaining and dealing. When they write all the paper and then they have the governments involved. This is not pure research, which you can just refer to as research. And then also, how does the Constitutional Court know that there will not be a technological revolution, that maybe in future it will be very easy to have negative emissions? All scary. And these are 8 guys, women and men, guys, who have a very indirect democratic legitimation. Okay, but yeah, they are front runners. But you see, as a public law, constitutional law professor, I have some bellyache with such far-reaching decisions.
The economic pressure for the next generations for development of the country as well, because this can be also a heavy break.
Yes.
And
yeah.
If everybody agrees to decrease the rhythm of development, that's okay. But if it's only one country, then
2% of so we are standing for 2% of the global emissions. And so. Yeah. Okay. But that's okay. Now we compare. When you compare climate change law. We come everywhere. This makes it so difficult to discuss because what I say, climate change law is a completely cross-cutting law. It goes from criminal law, business law, traffic transport, anyway, all areas of law are involved. And we cannot discuss this at once. But what turned out worldwide is that states tend to have a central climate change or climate law act. And Germany has enacted it, and here we have a legal net zero target, which is 5 years faster than the European Union. And this is very classical what we have. We have targets for the times. We have quantified sectoral targets, which also given a number of tons, really number of tons to the ministries. Then the ministries, if they don't meet, they are forced to immediate action programs which compensate. Then we have a clear monitoring process. This is important, and an independent climate expert council.
Professor, and where you were showing there, it's like also the carbon markets. They are inside there.
No, this is. No. This is. I would separate now. This is the overarching formal law, which says targets, who is responsible for targets, procedures, and then the emissions trading scheme and others. They are the material law to regulate in this sense. So this I discern formal and material. Yeah, and in Brazil, you have, as far as I understood, so up to now, you are going this way. As I heard, I kindly was invited, this was fantastic, not only to the Constitutional Court by Judge Barroso, but also to the parliament. I talked to some parliamentarians, and they told me that the government plans a law of decarbonization, which is very similar then to ours. What Brazil apparently has now is on this 2009 law, very similar acts, but they are not legally binding. So, but they are up to now similar. We had this also.
We don't have a national decarbonization plan. So
yeah.
And it's very diffuse, very
But
scarce.
the parliamentarians want to make it, they say.
That's the plan.
That's
we're not there yet.
They say next year the draft will appear, they promised. Yes. Yeah, but it could be a good argument. Yes. Yeah, and now this I discern. Now, when you look into the instruments, you have, of course, hundreds. Now you go. I cannot go now into detail, but we can discuss details. But of course, what I would mention is that the emissions trading scheme is our guiding, leading scheme. And I think it's important to have something in the middle. That is why I'm very happy that you also go this direction. You see these similarities in developments. They're very interesting. And I'm also very critical to many points. It's not that I say, oh, here our German European law, fantastic, look. No. But here, was a very good idea. And I lived it from the beginning, thanks to my quite high age. I was involved from the beginning. And it was, the Germany and Europe was so hostile. It said, this is an American idea. Trade with pollution rights. They said, this is nasty. This is not the way Europeans should do. It was really a cultural fight against emissions trading. And then, and of course, industry. No, this was not culture, this was interest. Oh, no, this is bad. Give us our general law, and so. And then Commission was very clever. I will come back to that because this is one way to regulate. They were introducing the whole legal framework, which didn't hurt at all. This was grandfathering, Companies were completely happy. Oh, nothing has changed. But then, when the legal framework was introduced, they started to put pressure in the tank, and this is where we are now. It's a very
just for the students to know that this comes from the Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. So all the discussions go with this global environment, and then that's why you have so many similarities from the German law and Brazilian law, because the major agreement shows the direction to the countries. Okay.
Yeah, so it's economically, it's really fantastic. When we introduced, or we thought now we have to introduce mitigation for the companies, the economists calculated that if you would do this with command and control policy, compared to that, it would have cost at least the double for the economy. And so it's a very, I think, a very good idea the Americans had in the 70s. And now I tell, this was just a little overview. Now I tell you about the problems where I see our common research agenda. And these are the main challenges in my view, where we have to find answers. The weak international framework. How can a law lead to a transformation of society and of economy? Then we have the multi-governance system. We have normative aspects. And this is my favorite. I'm in one project now working on that. How can we really regulate a long-term development into the unknown? Okay, the weak international framework, very short. This is actually where climate change should be solved, as it's an international problem, but we cannot do it. There is no central legislator, fragmentation of international law, not a good enforceability. And the way out is, of course, Germany. This is why I'm such a fan of the European Union. Although, you know, it doesn't make sense to make climate law in small Germany. Supranational law could help, but it's, I think, no real option for Brazil when I see Mercosur and the development. But we have to make climate clubs. We have to get together, the willing ones. We cannot wait to the last one. And I think common emissions trading markets, linking our central feature, when you have now a carbon market, we can link these markets and really develop power. And of course, I think hydrogen partnerships, cooperation in hydrogen is something where we can act international. The next problem, which is now, I come to very fundamental law problems. What we are heading for is a transformation. I don't say energy change or but it's energy transformation. And this is, when you really think about it, it's something else than transition. And transformation is a very good word when you look in the literature of other sciences, because transformation means that you regulate a thing which will no longer be the same thing afterwards. You transform it. You completely change the economy and society. And this is the challenge. And we have to think also from the theoretic point of view. Our law is used to amend. This I call incremental change. Here a little tax increase, here a little anti-bureaucracy reform. So, yeah. Step by step. So law is not used to transform the whole thing. And we will have both, also in the discussion with the Brazilian colleagues, we will have to discuss that. Whether it's possible at all. Yeah, the multi-level governance, we will compare. I don't have to talk a lot. I saw already in my talks a lot of interesting approaches between federation, states, and municipalities. there is the action, the heat nets, and how the governance should look like for that.
And for the students that want to research a little bit more about this governance, multi-level governance, there is Eleanor Ostrom, which was Nobel Prize professor, and she developed this idea of the multi-level governance, especially for climate and environment.
And this is now very important. And UN is also a level. It's weak, but this has this, with NDCs, this permanent connection to the national frameworks. Yeah, and we have that climate policies are affecting other policies and, of course, other fields of laws. This makes it extremely challenging. Just mention, of course, you know the sort of conflict between climate law and environmental law when you have installations in protected areas. It's very hard to solve, but I think we now, when we make legal policies, we have to think about win-win situations. And I think here the European Commission went very well ahead with the idea of green growth, that they say we have right away to think climate policies and economic policies together. You cannot separate, and that the name is green growth from the Commission, and I think it's fantastic. And another thing, I will shortly come back, just transition. This is, I will show, that climate change policies has winners and losers, internationally, of course, and nationally. And when you not right away think this together, this means a connection to social policies. You will lose. You will not, because you will not convince the population. You will fail with those who lose under the climate regimes. Yeah, and now the normative and political implications. This is all questions to deal. In my talks here, we have very similar problems. Of course, the relevant power structures. When you have vested interests, huge energy companies, you have to find a way to take them with you. And what we now saw, because we have the Greens in the government since some years, who made really strong climate policies, but the resistance is growing dramatically. And we have already invented and installed some instruments for creating acceptance, but it's by far not enough. We now realize that unfortunately, don't like change. And now we have really change, especially in the heating sector. So it's compulsory to change the heating systems. People get nervous and resist. And what I'm shocked, this is all the people who can afford. These are not only the poor ones who, for them, it's an existential problem. No, people with very good income say, oh, no, the state, now what are they asking from me? My heating system is very private, you know, and they come and force me upon. No. And we have a distributive conflict. This makes it so complicated. Katja, you already mentioned the international level. We will not proceed if we have not fair circumstances. And in the international level, this means money flows, tremendous money flows, because transformation action must be done everywhere in the world, but it's clear that those who can't pay cannot pay. And those who can pay, and then you can additionally argue with historic responsibility, but I like more the ability to pay principle, because this alone is enough. Who can pay must pay worldwide. And we had agreed on many COPs ago on the 100 billion transfer, which failed. And the third world in the last two COPs was extremely upset. Yeah. We should go on, we should proceed, and you promise even, and then you... I told you, how can democracy handle climate crisis? We are now worldwide. This is question mark, question mark. I have no clue how to convince the people, even they don't lose in Germany from energy transformation, they start to oppose. And of course now the populists on the rise, scarily looking at the US elections. Of course, I was also scarily looking at Brazil some years ago. How do we deal with that? And now, last but not least, my favorite, which is, as we lawyers now see, much more challenging than we thought. We are setting now these lovely net zero targets, yeah? Okay, 25 years ago. Now we have to regulate. And we have to regulate into the unknown, because we don't know yet the technologies, we don't know which technologies will really make it. This is hydrogen, it's very debated, and I have also no clue. But I know that we need to store renewable energy. There are other ways, and how to now intelligently regulate. We don't know of course, we don't know the climate policies in general of neighbors internationally. We don't know the development of climate change. We don't know a lot of things. And now how to regulate. And yeah, I call this is the regulation into the unknown. And actually we, my IKEM elaborated now for the Minister of Climate and Energy a planning system, because I'm happy that we convinced them, but it was easy to convince because it was actually at the change of minister when a Green entered. He's called Robert Habeck, and he is very open. And we convinced him that what we need is an energy planning. And of course, the conservatives said, oh, this Rodi and all these freaks, they want, GDR planning, state planning systems. I said, you cannot just leave it to the market. You must have an idea, and you cannot just say, oh, let's see whether the vehicles will go with direct electricity or whether they will go with hydrogen. No, you have to take decisions and plan. And we are at the moment, he implemented it, so it's related. You must adapt it all the time. But the tricky thing is, I will check the Brazilian planning system very carefully, because the tricky thing is planning must also be, some things must be fixed, otherwise it's completely loose. Yeah? Planning means you fix some things, but then relating, you look again into the situation and refresh your planning. And how to deal with that, you have, of course, new legislations, new governments. It's extremely tricky.
Yes, and Professor, sorry for interrupting, but this is what we have been studying here at the Integrity Center. because we have the agreement, as I was telling you, with the agency of oil in Brazil, and they're really thinking about how we can develop a flexible regulation,
Yes.
so we don't scare the market,
Yes.
but also we can give them some safety so they can invest. So it's not a very rigid, a very strict rule, but we think about flexible rules, flexible law, and also the sandbox regulation, but also something new like a pilot project. And in this pilot project, we just give them some guidance, it's a guideline, and so they can invest. And we are talking about billions of dollars of investment. So they can feel safe to put their money, and we are not going to change the law very radically. It's like a disruptive way, and so that's the way, this is the line that we are going.
This will be interesting to analyze. We have to, for example, our now I mentioned this direct electricity or hydrogen car traffic. Our conservative liberals say, leave it to the market. Yeah, what to the market? No fuel station exists. The market must know where to go. And the companies more and more say, say, it doesn't matter which way. We have to know where to invest. Please tell us. It's exactly what you say. So, and the infrastructure planning, it sounds simple, but I now try to convince the government that our infrastructure planning is, we build a line XY from here to there. And then we have a complicated planning. It costs a lot of time, and then somewhere we have it. This we cannot afford anymore, because things are changing. And I try to convince them now we have to change our infrastructure planning law, that it's allowed also to plan alternatives. Like in saying now a CO2 pipeline or a hydrogen pipeline, we don't know whether we need it. It depends on the development. But it's when we need it, we cannot start from the scratch. So this a new thinking in infrastructure planning. I'm working on it. Yeah, okay, and then this is the final slide. I just want, this I mentioned, this is very important, instruments for more acceptance. There was just now a very interesting, huge article by a US colleague on sunrise legislation. We know the sunset legislation. Sunset legislation is that you say subsidies only for 5 years and it's gone. You right away regulate the end. Sunrise legislation reminds me to what the Commission, EU Commission has done with emissions trading. Introducing a scheme in a way it doesn't yet hurt really. And then getting stronger. If maybe it's a way out when you right away hard regulate, you fail, and you must maybe take this second option. Yeah, and I think this is the overview. And just to tell you, we are very happy to receive students. When you come to Berlin, you will find lovely colleagues. You will get your working desk. We just moved in even better rooms where there's table football, table tennis in our. So, okay.
So there's going to be a very
This is